Undergraduate Student Senate session is now in session. As a reminder, our SJ mission statement for this year is in light of the volunteer spirit. The mission of the 2016-2017 Undergraduate Student Senate is to interact with and advocate for all students through crafting meaningful legislation that promotes positive change and authentic discourse in order to foster an inclusive campus culture. I'll now call on Secretary Dalton Teel to take attendance.
If you are here representing another senator, just say proxy when I call your name. Madison Starnes.
Here.
Logan Notestein. Mustafa Ali Smith.
Here.
Sam England.
Present.
Kalina Blazanovich.
Here.
Danielle Kawakowski. Will Gableman. Will Gableman. Kendra Phillips.
Here.
Thomas Tran.
Proxy.
Jack Larimer.
Here.
Thomas Cortez.
Here.
Rachel Woods.
Here.
Emily Dickey.
Here.
Rachel Park.
Here.
Grant Lyle.
Here.
Nick Lauerman.
Here.
Philip Newsom.
Proxy.
Don Black.
Here.
Beverly Banks.
Here.
Alex Swisher.
Proxy.
Elizabeth Hamilton.
Here.
Lee Belmont.
Proxy.
Sean Fishkind. Chris Cooley. Stephen Brennan.
Here.
Mary McBride.
Here.
Matthew Lyons. Here. Sam DeFord.
Here.
Holly Keeble.
Here.
Matthew Myers.
Here.
James Lytle. Nate Hogan. Here. Grant Peterson.
Here.
Michael Curtis.
Here.
Dallas McCash. Elena Cameron.
Here.
Kat Spike.
Here.
Joe Tirico.
Here.
Kirsten Marsh.
Here.
Maria Amaya. E.C. Beach.
Here.
Craig Collins. Molly McCullough.
Proxy.
Camelia Gosmanova.
Here.
Sawyer Smith. Doug Keevitt.
Here.
Shelby Roberts.
Proxy.
Omar Matubzi.
Here.
Hunter Harrison. Haley Page.
Here.
Ayana Crenshaw.
Here.
Trevor Bass.
Here.
Haley Brundage.
Here.
Megha Patel.
Here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so before we move into our speakers, I would like for everyone to close their laptops and give our speaker their undivided attention. And now I would like to call up the Knox County Mayor, Tim Burchett.
Thank y'all for allowing me to be here. I was in this building before. Wasn't this building, it was actually blocked back in the day. So it's a pleasure to be here. Mr. Addison did a pretty good thing with this. It's very high tech. They wouldn't let me anywhere near any of this stuff if I was in school. So if you're wondering, you need to adjust your microphone. That yes, this is the way I talk. So I just want to make sure y'all understand that. So I go to places a lot of East Tennessee is one of the few places in the country where people do not speak with an accent. So I'm proud of that fact. So a little bit of a joke there, just making sure y'all are listening. I'm going to talk a little bit about where I came from and what where I am now, and then we'll stop and answer some questions because generally y'all. I mean, last time when I was in the state senate, I spent 12 years in the state house. I'm sorry, 4 years in the state house and 12 years in the state senate, and I was over here for a debate. And I mean, I know the program. You go into these things, and there's all these college students there, and I was obviously I was a lot younger then, and I was one of the youngest House members when I was in the House, and I was definitely the youngest senator when I was in the state senate. You go in these debates, and they don't know who you are. They're just there to get extra credit, and I was sitting behind a couple of sorority girls, and they were talking about it, and I was like, man, I hope this doesn't go on very long. I got to get out of here. And they're like, yeah, I know, we need some people down the strip. And they were talking about how they couldn't, all I got to do is get the program, and then I can leave, and I get extra credit. And I said, yeah, me too. And then I started on in the deal, and they introduced, the candidates, and I was the candidate. And then I walked out, and I said, well, I'll probably see y'all on the strip later. Anyway, I want to tell you how I got started in politics. It's actually, since we're in the business building, it actually was from more of a business end. My dad was on the old city school. My father was the dean of student conduct here at UT for about 42 years, I believe. He came here shortly after the Second World War. He and Mom are both both in heaven, but, and my mama taught school, public school. She taught at Old Young High School, which is no longer there. And then Bearden High School the first year, and then she taught at Knoxville College for 10 years actually. Some months she got paid, and some months she didn't. We both value the value in education, and what you're getting here is something really special. But I got into politics, I sort of backed into it. My father was on the old city school board, and I was, you know, in 4 or 5 years old. I'm standing out there in front of West Hills Elementary School politicking for him. But actually, I had a business idea when I was in the 7th or 8th grade. I was kind of an unusual kid. I liked to garden. My dad would garden, you know, he'd get out and they plant these tomatoes, and he put all these chemicals on them and all this stuff, and he'd get like 4 or 5 tomatoes a year or something. It wasn't very productive. And I got into this organic gardening because I thought it was pretty stupid. You know, you grab a handful of soil and you look at it, and it's just all these microorganisms and earthworms and all this stuff God put in there, and then you put all these chemicals in the ground and it kills them, and then, you know, next thing you know, your kids are born with webbed feet. So you got that going for it. That's a little bit of jokes. Y'all listening back there? That's some of my A material. I'm going to have to retool, as they say. But anyway, I had this idea. I was looking for some organic matter, and I stopped a KUB truck in front of my house. I was in 8th grade. It was in 1978, you know, before y'all were born. And I was... the KUB at the time would grind up all the trees that fall down. And they pick up all the leaves and brush on the side of the road back in the day, and they throw them in one of these big chippers in the back of their truck, you know, wah, wah, wah. And usually do it about 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. It'd wake you up. Anyway, I was out there and I stopped the guy and I said, "Hey, what do y'all do with that stuff?" And he said, "Well, we take it to the landfill." I said, "Really?" I said, "What does the landfill pay you?" And he said, "They don't. We pay them to take it." So the wheels started turning in my head. And then when I worked in some political campaigns, and I worked in some smaller businesses, sold a little insurance, and so I presented this idea to the city of Knoxville at the time that I would take all their grass, leaves, and brush, and I'd do it for $20 a ton. Well, there was a big blizzard that year, so we generated about 30,000 tons. So $20 a ton, 30,000, what's that work out to? Anyone? $600,000. Who said that? Are you a math major? No. Well, you ought to be. All right. $600,000. Oh, by the way, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at, I forgot, at Tim Burchett. So somebody's supposed to take a picture so I can retweet it. And I've got close to 15,000 followers now. So I'll put you out there across the globe. But, so anyway, so I got in this, I was making $600,000 a year. They were paying me $600,000, but it cost me about $500,000 a year to grind it up. So that leave me with how much profit? 100. There you go. That's my man, right? Go. You've got a place in government. All right. So just don't get too aggressive. It's not a real hard job. So anyway, and then I sold it for $10 a pickup truckload, which doesn't seem like a lot, but I sold 4,000 pickup. Sir, did you know what time this thing started? I'm going to have to start all over. No, anyway. So, anyway, thank God. I was selling 4,000 pickup truckloads a month at $10 a pickup truckload. That works out to...
I'm done.
Good, they'll get into math on the fly. $40,000 a month cash, living at home, generating that kind of money, right? Well, turns out some other people wanted that business, stepping on a lot of toes. Got accused of taking toxic waste. He went through all this crazy stuff. I mean, it's back and forth. I go into these meetings. The city would, the person working with the city would say, "Oh, it's got bacteria in it," and everybody, the headlines, "Bacteria found in mulch." Well, guess what? Bacteria is everywhere. Your human body has a quarter pound of bacteria in it. If we didn't have bacteria on this earth, it would be square. The earth would be just a cube because we push everything and it'd just be a cube. So anyway, we went through all this. The head of UT's microbiology department at the time, he actually ate some of my mulch on the 6 o'clock news to prove that there was nothing wrong with it. Of course, I kept thinking, man, if this dude has a heart attack tonight, I'm going to jail. You know, cut and stuff me, man, I'm out. So, but anyway, I ended up, long story short, all these politicians that were my friends, you know, I played football with their kids. I grew up in Knoxville. My dad knew them all. And guess what they did? What do you think they did? They ran like cockroaches when you turn the light on. They ran from me. And then finally the EPA of all things, the EPA came in and cleared my name. The final thing, after I lost the business, the EPA come in and cleared my name. I'd go to these meetings and you know, they'd say, well, they'd accuse me of something, so I'd have to bring at least one lawyer. Back then it was $100 an hour, 2 engineers, $100 an hour, and then to be all this other. Some of those meetings were costing me $500 an hour, and you can see where that's going. They're going to just bleed me dry. And nobody in government would help. And so, you know, that made a big impact on me. So I decided at that point, if I was ever in a position of doing something, you know, that'd be what I'd do. I'd look after the little guy, because they get squashed every day. You go up in that courthouse, city county building, every day you see good people that just work hard. Maybe some of your parents probably like these folks. They didn't have the opportunity to go to college, and they just work hard every day. They turn a wrench, they do hair or whatever, and the government is just, it's just a big machine that just runs over. And so I really had 2 choices in my life. I could sit on a bar stool somewhere and feel sorry for myself, which I was entitled to, but since I don't drink, that was out of the question. Or I could do something about it. I chose to do something about it. I ran for office that year. I ran for state house, and out of 99 house races that year, I was the only person to beat an incumbent in the primary. We knocked on 6,000 doors. You know, we just wore it out, and it was a big upset. I won, I think, about less than 3% of the vote. So it was a huge upset. But I'd lost everything in that whole turmoil. Anyway, like I said, if I got elected, I'd never turn my back on the underdogs, and that's kind of where I've made my mark in politics. When I first ran for office, like I said, I won a little under 3%. Then the next year I ran and I won 40-something%. The last time I actually ran, had an opponent, it was a serious opponent, former sheriff. I ran for mayor the first time. I received 85% of the vote in the primary and 89% in the general, which is basically unheard of. You put a joke up there and they'll do better than that in Knox County. And this was not a joke, but people understood. I'd done a lot of work for constituents. I carried a lot of legislation when I was in the state legislature. I raised the speed limit. I locked up child molesters. Just you go down the line. I had a part in a lot of major legislation through the state. And so, you know, I see this every day. I see government basically assaulting our freedoms every day. And you got to choose. Are you going to make that decision? Is government going to do everything for you? Or are you going to be more like myself, be more of a libertarian and do your own thing? Government has just become too big, folks. It has become too big, and people are complaining. Well, you know what? Get out and do something about it. Get out and vote. Work for your candidates. I don't care who you're for or who you're against. I have my own opinion, and that is my opinion. But in this country, we've just become a country of complainers, you know, safe space. You know where my dad's safe space was when he was 18 or 19 years old? He was running up a hill on Okinawa fighting the Japanese in the Second World War. He had a Thompson submachine gun and 20 pounds of TNT strapped to his back to throw in a cave. My mama was she lost her brother, oldest brother, who was 33. He shouldn't have even been in the war. They'd even warm bodies. He enlisted, they wouldn't let him in because he was too old. He went back and he ended up dying a few days after D-Day. If you ever come in my office, there's a 48-star flag on the wall. That was on his casket. He never got to come home. He never got to go to, he went to college actually. He was one of the brightest. He was the oldest of 7. My mama actually flew airplanes during the Second World War. She was 19 years old. There's a picture, I got a picture if you ever come in my office. She's sitting there beside an old trainer that she was flying. And so I tell you all that because I've lived the American dream. I mean, I've had it, you know, I had 2 really cool parents. Kid Rock says he's the American badass, so I got news for him. My parents were the American badasses. All right? I'm glad I'm on film saying that. So, did you really say that? I said, I sure did. I'm going to tell you something, too, about government and politics. Somebody told me this one time. It's not my quote. I wished it was, but I'll take full credit for it. But, you know, you're allowed to do that now. You're either at the table or you're on the menu. Remember that. You're either out there at the ballot box or you're going to get the wood put to you. So I would ask you all to remember that, especially this election here. You know, you can volunteer for a campaign, you can run for office. I've been at things before and they say, I want every one of y'all to run for office. Well, I don't want every one of y'all to run for office. I mean, you know, you've got other priorities in your life, but you've got to get involved, and I have, and I think I've made a difference. I'm term limited. I've been in office now for 6 years in the mayor's office, and I was in Nashville for 16 years. So, and I'll be, when I get out of office, I'll be 54 years old. So that's pretty much my life story. Married. I married a wonderful woman. I went through a very horrible divorce, and I thought it was about over, and I met a wonderful woman at a UT football game. She was a widow, and now I have a beautiful 9-year-old daughter, and it's probably the coolest thing ever. So you ladies are very expensive, but you're worth it. So, and I'm telling you, it's the greatest thing I've ever had. So anyway, I'll stop there. I probably didn't talk about anything you wanted me to, because I never do. And anyway, does anybody have any questions of me? I promise you they're all fair. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. First off,
Where are you from?
hi, I'm Elizabeth Hamilton, like the musical, and sorry, I had to. And I'm from a cute little town in West Tennessee called Dyersburg.
I know Dyersburg well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I thought with that accent you might have been from Chicago or New York.
They'll tell you I wish sometimes, but you
No,
know,
you're fine. I
West
like that.
Tennessee, born and raised. First off, thank you very much for coming and speaking with us. I know I just kind of speak for everyone when I say we all really appreciate you taking your time. My question
Well, you
for
pay my salary. See, that's the deal. You don't need to appreciate it. You need to demand more out of your elected officials. But go ahead, Elizabeth. I'm sorry.
No problem, sir. I just wanted to ask, in a time of kind of just unrest, it seems like, in a time of tension and unrest and harshness, when it seems like the world just gets a little meaner every day, how do you approach something that is big and powerful like government? And how do you kind of stand down the giant that is government while also staying true to who you are personally, not letting it harden your heart, not letting it get to you?
You get bitter, and tell you what, people get cocky, and they get bitter, they do all those things. That's a great question. I tell folks I'm a Christian. I'm not a very good one. When I get to heaven, y'all are going to look around and go, man, I can't believe that guy snuck in. And I'll be over there in the corner waiting. But, you know, I actually have a little bit of a higher calling because I know what's right. And I just try to do what's right every day. And I don't. My dad, I said this one time, I was in an interview, or they were doing a commercial. And they had all this script, you know, it's usually a bunch of garbage. Somebody from the state party brings it. I think I was when I was running for mayor, though, and they said, well, tell me about, you know, making big decisions. And I said, well, my daddy told me one time, he said, you know what I do at night, Timmy? I said, what's that, Dad? He said, I sleep, which meant to say he didn't worry about what he did there today because he did what was right. And I think if we do that in our lives, you know, right now, I know it looks like our world's in turmoil, and it is, but it's always been in turmoil. You know, we've had politicians in our country that have had duels. When you take your oath in Tennessee, at least when you used to, that you had to say that you hadn't been in a duel. I mean, you know, they'd get in a fight and they get out on the main street and shoot each other, you know, which I know that you could draw some analogies now with the drive-bys and all the violence and stuff, but the reality is that it's always been tough. And good folks generally pulled us through in this country. I mean, I know it looks like right now there's not a lot of good folks because there's a reason our newspapers and our newsprints are going out of business. I think it's not because of Twitter or Facebook. It's because it's basically so one-sided garbage from either side. You know, I'm a conservative. I'm honest with you. I'm as conservative as probably anybody y'all know. But I'm more of a civil libertarian that overshadows even all that. And I think the media focuses on the negative because that's what sells. And I think the public is tired of it, and that's why big papers and big news agencies are going bust all over the country. You know, they say good news doesn't sell. Well, you know, the Andy Griffith Show, it's in 300 countries or something crazy. I mean, it's in, you know, every language on the face of God's green earth, and because it still sells. It still sells a good message that good people can have disagreements, but at the end of the day, you know, we're still Americans. Let's focus on getting things done. And, you know, I've always sort of had that in the back of my mind, that you just kind of do what's right and not worry about the other side, because they'll take care of themselves. In politics, that's tough to do. Look, when I went through my divorce and I fought the big boys on a big tax increase, and they put 24 front-page articles about my divorce and things going on in my life. And, you know, the way I handled it was, I told everybody in the office, I said, don't bring it to me unless it has to do with running this office, and don't worry about it. Let's get on with it. And you know what? I ran unopposed the last time. So I think the public understands it, and they're crying out. We're really crying out for leaders in our country right now. It's just, and both parties are at fault. I'm a Republican, I'll blame them. They've done a terrible job. Democrats have done a terrible job. A confirmed socialist has won 22 states. And why is that? Because he's speaking to people's hearts. You know, and the Republicans have, in my opinion, have just done a terrible job. And both parties, the reality is this, folks. I know you want to get fired up about Hillary or Trump or whatever, or the Libertarian candidate, whoever that is. But the honest to goodness truth is, when they close those doors in Washington, D.C., you know what color they see? Dalton? What's the color of that shirt? Omar, what's the color of your shirt, brother? Green. Absolutely right. That's what they see. They don't give a rip. All they're about is getting reelected. Let's be honest, all right? Let's be honest. They're only concerned about getting reelected. And they try to reach the lowest common denominator. And that's what they do. And you know, I say it till I'm blue in the face, and my Republican buddy, man, you can't say that. But you know what? Every time I say that, and every time I run, I win with a little bit more. And I think people are fed up, and I think they realize it. But we're hungry for leaders in this country, and we don't really have them, I'm afraid. It's too much self-serving. Sorry, I went to preaching there, Elizabeth.
No, sir, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any more questions? Yes, sir. What's your name, Grant?
Yes, sir.
All right, Grant.
So, you're speaking to the UT Senate right now, so you can imagine there's several of us in the room that would love to participate in government one day.
Hey, you're going to have to speak up, Grant. I ride this old, I collect old motorcycles, and my wife says I have a selective hearing, but honestly, I just can't hear you.
I got you.
You have to speak up.
All right, so you're speaking to the University of Tennessee Senate right now. It's fair enough to say that several people in the room would love to participate in government one day. What would you say is something good to keep in mind as we move towards that?
Do it for the right cause. Don't support a dirtbag because you think they're going to win or they're going to lose. You know what? I've gotten more out of politics by taking on a campaign or a cause I knew I was going to get beat in. It goes back to doing the right thing. Be for the person you're for. Don't just get in it for the, you know, the glory or whatever, because government's not sexy. It really isn't. You know, I mean, I talk to people all the time. People come in, oh, we're going to open up this park, we're going to do this. You know what? You know, and they say, you know, we're going to build this bridge, we're going to do that. The only way you can build that or buy that or whatever is take from you. Is take from you. Government's never created anything. It happens when people get together and say, man, we need to fix this thing, and they think of an idea. I'm still a fan of capitalism. I said when I took office, if Knox County, if it's in the yellow pages, Knox County, it's probably a good idea that Knox County not be in that arena if it's in the yellow pages. And we've gotten out of a lot of things. We've gotten out of property, and we were in the mulch business, which I was actually in, oddly enough, 20-something years ago. So, but if you want to get involved, I'd just go volunteer. You'd be surprised. I volunteered in a lot of campaigns when I was a lot younger than you all, and I was pretty close to some major players in our local and state politics, just because I got in there and volunteered and worked. Yes, sir. Dallas. Where are you from?
I'm from Jefferson City, Tennessee.
Right, where are you from, Grant?
I was from Murfreesboro.
All right.
I'm from Jefferson City, and my question is, would you mind giving us a glimpse into what's necessarily going on in your office right now in terms of issues dealing with Knoxville specifically?
Right. Okay, well, I'm the county mayor, okay? So I have, there's a county and a city mayor. I know, I just want, you're good. In the cities within the county.
Yeah.
I have all the schools, okay, which is, it's all kind of crazy. And we should have a consolidated, not a metro. We don't want to be like Nashville. I don't need 36 or whatever city councilmen. You know, 11 or 13, something like that could manage the whole thing. But 62 cents out of every dollar goes to our school system. So, but the courts have ruled that I am the chief, the charter, the county charter, just like our Constitution basically, says that I am the chief financial officer of the county. But the courts have stepped in and said, well, the schools are an entity of their own, on down the line. So 62 cents out of every dollar goes to the school system. I think it should be an elected position. The superintendent is currently appointed. I think it's a bad idea, but because I think there's a lack of accountability. They say, oh, we want to take politics out of it. Well, you haven't taken politics out of it. You've taken it away from 400,000 Knox County citizens who could vote on it, and you put it in the hands of basically 5 school board members, because we have 9 school board members. 5 makes the majority, I believe. So, that's right, yeah. So, in a day's time, you know, I deal with school issues, I deal with our jail, our sheriff's department, of course, is a constitutionally elected office holder, so they have their own entity. And basically, I have to decide of that $700+ million budget we have every year, or where it goes, almost on a daily basis, it seems. And I have to get approval through budgetary items like that through the county commission, and they vote on it just like Congress would. So it's you know, it's a full-time job. But honestly, what I do during a day's time, there's really no script for it. I'll deal with people that have, you know, a buddy of mine, his son was involved in a crime, and you know, I was able to help get his kid moved closer to town because he was dying of cancer. He wanted to see his kid. And, you know, things that aren't, you know, you're not going to get any headlines for, but at that point, that is democracy to that person. And I don't believe in a big bureaucracy to handle that. I believe when people call in the office and say, I need to speak to Mayor Burchett or Tim, they get me. And there's usually not a lot of delay in that. Sometimes if I'm not at a meeting, the call just gets straight on into me. So, you know, it's a day-to-day type deal, and it's a moving target every day. And some of the things I'm interested in doing, I would like to see, you know, it's not every kid's going to go to college, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with somebody who wants to cut hair or turn a wrench or do something like that. We've got a diesel, I was talking to a guy that hires diesel mechanics. He's got a diesel mechanic that makes close to $100,000 a year, and he can't get good diesel mechanics. I spoke over here at Tennessee College of Applied Technology. It's State Tech, is what we used to call it. And the top graduate in that school, believe it or not, was a lady who graduated in diesel. And guess what? She's got a job, multiple jobs waiting on her. So, you know, welding, things like that, there again, maybe not as glamorous, but you can make a lot of money doing it. And I'm sort of pushing towards that. I'd like to see some of the property that we have converted over into that, to teach some trades, because there's a lot of good people. And you want to break a cycle of poverty, you give somebody a real job, a trade, and you break that cycle of poverty.
Would that be funded by the Tennessee province?
It could be, or it could just be through, we could do it on a high school level, at that level. And, or we could, there's private entities that do that. There's several different avenues. Thank you for that question. Sorry, I went to preaching again.
I guess I got it.
Yes, sir. Joe, where are you from?
I'm from Huntington, West Virginia. So you've been in public office for quite some time now, and you said your term is coming to an end. Do you see yourself continuing a career in public office?
I'd like to be, but you know, it just depends on where I can go and what I can do. Yeah, that's the $1 million question.
All right.
Everybody get asked that a lot. Thank you for asking that, because in 2 years, well, in less than 2 years, I'll need to start making some moves towards that. I love public service. I mean, I've done it, and I've been fairly successful at it. That whole modeling gig, I thought I'd have at this time. It's going to be a hand model. But wrecked too many motorcycles and busted too many knuckles and too many altercations that I'm on film. Pulled a school bus off somebody. You got to be careful, man. Everything is right there. You know, that's another thing y'all have. We didn't have these when I was in school, so it's a different story. Any other questions? All right. Well, I appreciate y'all letting me come in here. Listen, no kidding. If y'all ever want to come up and just see what happens, call me, 215-2005. I'd love for you to come up. You can sit in the office and just watch people come in and go. It's an open door kind of thing. A lot of mayors don't do that. I'm not big on the formalities and stuff. The lady on my floor is a custodian. I was up there one morning about 5:30 or 6, and she said it was early in my career as mayor, and I said, hey girl, what's going on? She goes, oh hey, I'm sorry, Mayor. I mean, sir. And I said, no. I said, honestly, I mean, this is kind of my philosophy about government. And I told her, I said, if I don't show up for work, ain't nobody gonna miss me. I said, if you don't show up for work, we got a real problem. So, if y'all got a problem, it's my problem. You don't call me. 215-2005 is my number. So thank y'all very much. I need to do a shameless selfie. Hold on. Ready? Hold on. My daughter's Nathan's ready.
He said selfie name when
Ready? That ain't very good. You're going to have to kind of squeeze it in. Tell you what I'll do. I'll start over here, and then I'll go around. Y'all are out of luck. I don't think it's going to work. Thank y'all. Go Bucs. I guess I should have said I did graduate from UT. Took me 6 years. It's tough to do when you don't drink or smoke pot. I didn't do either. It still took me 6 years. Remember too, C students run the world. All right?
Wow, how great was that? I hope you guys are awake now. Got some more boring things, I guess. We can move on to approving the minutes. So without objection, the minutes for the September 20th session are approved. The minutes are approved. Okay, so now we'll move into open town hall. Would anyone like to come speak to say anything?
I just got a couple of points for everybody to keep an eye out for. All right, so constituency hours, which we talked about at the beginning of the year. Tonight there's going to be a Google Doc coming around, and that's just going to be an opportunity for you to register those hours. 12 hours are needed, and late spring is when they're due completely. We haven't set a final date, so late spring, 12 hours. At-large members are not required to get constituency hours, so keep that in mind for any of our new at-large senators. Next point, tonight, people who have absences will be getting just an update on how many they have. It's 3 unexcused absences per year. If you have proxies, that obviously doesn't count, so if you know you're going to miss, make sure you have a proxy, because we just don't have that conversation down the road if you have 3 absences. It's just, we want you here, and it's just going to be an uncomfortable conversation. So if you leave early, that counts as an absence. If you come late twice, that counts as an absence. So just some more things to keep in mind moving forward. And finally, just dress code reminders. No t-shirts, no sneakers, no shorts. This is the basic stuff. It's business casual. Let's just show some respect for the offices that we hold, especially when we have guests like Tim Burchett. It just shows no respect for him and ourselves. So just please keep that in mind. Business casual. So.
Would anyone else like to come say anything in open town hall? Okay. So now we'll move to officer reports. I would like to call up Student Body President Carson Hollingsworth.
Try to keep it quick today with all the stuff we have to go over. So first thing, there's going to be a safety committee started by Dr. Shivers, Chief Lane, and I'm also going to be a co-chair of that. If you guys are interested in being a participant in that, helping out with that, shoot me an email, shoot McKinsey an email. Let us know if you want to get involved in that safety committee, talking about just overall student safety across campus in the Fort Sanders neighborhood and in the Knoxville community. Mental Health Week is going to take place October 17th to the 21st, so as we've discussed at other Senate meetings in the past. If you want to be really involved with this, you can feel free to reach out to us, let us know. But there's going to be Google Docs and stuff for you guys to help sign up if you are interested in just tabling. Again, it's a great opportunity to get out there, meet your constituents, interact with a lot of different people. We're collaborating with Center for Health Education and Wellness, the Counseling Center, and the Dean of Students Office, as well as a few other constituents and the people across campus that can provide some help with that week. the Board of Trustees rulemaking hearing is happening next week on Thursday. So it's going to be discussing the code of conduct. So I know you guys are going to have legislation tonight based off of resolution about the Title IX sexual assault case and all that stuff. But make sure you know that this code of conduct hearing encompasses a lot more than that. It's all about the proposed code of conduct that Vice Chancellor Curley and the people in the code of conduct office have essentially written over the past few years. What they come up with. There's some changes involving the overall student conduct board, jurisdiction, Good Samaritan policy, all that stuff. So if you guys want to look at that, we can make sure you guys get the link to be able to read through that stuff. And if you want to submit comments, you can do that. It's really easy. You can submit comments up until Thursday to people who are going to be reviewing that at the Board of Trustees meeting. And also, it's going to be open to the general public and also the University of Tennessee community. So if you guys are interested in coming out there, it's in the Hollingsworth Auditorium, no relation to me. It's going to be at 8:30 in the morning on the Ag campus. So you guys are all more than welcome to go there. Student government is going to be there. We're probably going to be giving our own kind of stance on some things that are being raised in that meeting. And so because of that, we want to make sure we're kind of talking about what we're going to be discussing that day. So Tuesday night after development day at 8 o'clock, we're going to have a quick just kind of discussion between the exec and some people who have reached out who are interested in this topic, and we're going to talk about that. And you guys, once again, more than welcome to come. Just feel free to reach out to McKinsey or myself and just let us know about that. Let's see. Put on your calendar, November 6th is going to be the tentative date for President's Roundtable. So if you guys interact with anyone or you're interested in spreading that out to the public or you want to come to that, I know it's going to be a good event to really interact with a lot of people across campus from a lot of diverse communities. So I think it's something that we should all be kind of looking out for in the next few weeks. If you have anything that you want to share about that, any kind of suggestions you might want to make about that, let McKinsey know, let myself know. How many times can I show you that? And then October 22nd, we're going to have the SGA retreat from 9 a.m. until 2 o'clock. So make sure you guys have that on your calendars right now. That is the bye weekend, so it's not like a game day or anything. You're not missing out on anything like that. In addition to that, the next Senate meeting, it will be pretty much like, don't count me on it, don't impeach me if I don't do this, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be presenting the Election Commission names for this. That meeting. So if you guys just want to look over the Constitution, look over what it means to be on the Election Commission, what's going on over the Election Commission and throughout the election process in the spring, it's really good that you guys are educated about that topic before it happens in the spring and before we bring forward those names. So if you guys want to look over that, is how it works. Is the President, the Vice President, and Student Services Directors are all ex officio members of it. The size of the committee depends on the President and how many people I nominate, and then I also nominate an election commissioner, and they're the ones who edit the election packet and make all that stuff for the spring election process going forward. And then last thing, so we had a meeting with some senators and student ticketing. Tim Burchett, if you guys remember him, he came and presented at Senate a few weeks ago. So they're going to be changing the ticketing process. We haven't received any email confirmation for sure regarding the letter that we're going to be sending out to students regarding it. But how it's basically going to work is they've been examining it and they're kind of flipping the two claim periods. So claim period 1 and claim period 2 are going to swap for students. So this is something that student government is supporting, and it's something that we think is going to be a really good way to alleviate some of the concerns for students who will have a lot of loyalty points and they want to be ensured that they have a ticket to the games. So if you guys have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. We're going to be sending out an email, like I said recently. It's going to be going out to students, not the entire student body, but students who are involved with getting a ticket, who are eligible for getting a ticket. And so if any of them have questions, you can feel free to point them in our direction, or if you feel comfortable talking about it, make sure you read through the email that gets sent out and you're educated on the topic, what's all changing. So to put it simply though, the two claim periods are going to be swapping, and we're going to be setting aside some tickets for the claim period 2, and students with loyalty points are going to have a better chance of getting a ticket to the game. Are there any questions regarding any of that?
Is that starting now, effective?
So the plan is it's going to start for the Alabama game. Due to the high amount of tickets we're expecting to be requested for that game, we wanted to get in there as soon as possible. But again, we haven't received the official confirmation from the ticketing office, but that's what the plan is right now, is that it's going to happen for Alabama.
What do you mean that claim period 1 and 2 are switching? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So if you remember when Tim Burchett came and presented, claim period 1 used to be a weighted lottery. So once you request your ticket, then you're entered into the lottery. So how it works is pretty much the more loyalty points you have, the more times your name is put in the bucket to get a ticket. And that used to be claim 1. That used to be the vast majority of tickets are given out in claim 1. we're kind of flopping that so that it's now in claim 2. And so in claim 1, it's strictly going to be based off of loyalty points. So they're going to go down the list. The person who has the most loyalty points at University of Tennessee campus is going to have the number one chance to get a ticket, essentially. And it's going to go down that list. And the people then who don't have enough loyalty points, or the people who fail to claim their ticket in claim 1, will then go to claim 2, and that will be the weighted lottery. But there's probably going to be around 2,000 to 3,000 tickets that are set aside for claim 2. So there's going to be a larger number of students who don't receive their ticket in claim 1 than normal, but that's just because there's more tickets in claim 2 now, and then that's going to be the weighted lottery. So whether you're a first-year student or fifth-year senior, you have a chance of getting a ticket to the game. The way you kind of described it is there's been roughly 10 loyalty point opportunities for students who have gone to games so far this season, and right now it's kind of looking like the cutoff is going to be between like 4 to 5 loyalty points in the first claim 1. So pretty much we've gone through all the games. I don't want to say it's like officially you're going to get a ticket to the game, but it's great likelihood you're going to get a ticket to the game if you've been to the other games this season. And so that kind of solves that problem of people who have a lot of loyalty points and have done a lot of games and they're fifth year seniors and they're not getting tickets to the game. So it's going to help solve that concern. Yeah.
Is seating still going to be based on loyalty points then? Because what that would mean is this, like whoever has the most then gets the best seat every single time. And so if they just keep attending, they'll just keep getting the best seat and everyone will sort of stay in the same spot.
So how they're going to be working with seating is it's not going to be the random seating like it is right now. It is going to be a little more based off of loyalty points. It's not going to be like you're going to be in the exact same seat every single game, but it is going to be more based off of loyalty points. And then also because there's about 500 to 600 people who don't claim their ticket in claim 1 that goes to claim 2, then those people are then like kind of filtered into the areas that people will then like claim a seat for claim 1. This is how it works, is they assign seating pretty much just like from all the bottom row and the second row, then all the third row, so they just kind of go up through the stadium. It doesn't affect group ticketing at all. Group ticketing is still the same, how it's the average of the people in the group. And so that's going to be the same. Groups can be selected in claim 1, claim 2. It totally depends on the amount of loyalty points, as it's kind of been in the past. Yeah.
Is this a system that's going to be piloted through the Alabama game, or is this going to be a thing?
So if it's really successful, we're going to keep it going, hopefully. But I mean, we're always open to different like opinions and what people have to say about it, and if they have any kind of concerns about it or any changes they want to offer, then I think it's going to be something that we're working throughout the next year on. Because, like you said, you know, it's kind of different this year. It's a bit different in the past years because we're a good team, 5-0. Like people are trying to go to the game now more so than they ever have in the past. What's that? Oh yeah. So so we're just trying to make sure that we like alleviate that concern, and we're changing that up. And I think it's something that needs to continually be looked at all throughout the rest of the season and also after the end of the season. I'm not talking about next year, but right now I think it's the best kind of like short-term fix for the amount of tickets that are being requested and the amount of claims that we're having. Yes.
Did they like say anything about, since the fact that, I mean, like we are number 9 right now, like we're kind of like killing it, like are we gonna like have tickets for these games since we're like starting to actually have like a large student turnout, a lot more people aren't getting tickets, like it's not really fair to those people?
Again, to kind of echo what Tim said when he was here, right now, if you think about it, student tickets sell for $10. Other tickets are a lot more money, and there's costing athletics a lot more money if they're going to give up those tickets to us. And right now, I want to say, like, I don't want to say it's official, but they're not going to give us any tickets when we're having 1,400, 1,500 students who claimed their tickets not show up to the games. So we're having about 1,500, about 86% show up rate to the games. And until we can improve that and get more students to come to the games and show we're actually using our tickets, they're not going to give us any more tickets. So I think that's something I really need to talk about in the future, about either starting a campaign as a student government or really encouraging students to show up to the game and actually use their ticket that they bought, because right now it's kind of looking like they're not going to give us any tickets until we prove that we want more tickets and we want to be more present at the games moving forward. But I think it's something that we should definitely talk about in the future too, now that we are a better team, like you said. But we want to make sure we improve that before it happens.
Can there be a penalty for not showing up to the game, like subtracting a loyalty point?
So that was discussed in the meeting. I mean, personal Carson opinion, I don't think it's student government's role to be initiating penalties on other students here at UT. But it's definitely something that can be talked about in the future. It's not something we want to do like right now necessarily, but something we did talk about is the opportunity for students who tried to get a ticket and didn't get selected in claim 1 or claim 2 to give them a loyalty point because they tried their hardest to go to the game. They shouldn't be punished for not being able to get to that game. So it's something we can look at, but right now it's kind of not on the priority list right now for student ticketing.
student ticket allotment done for away games?
Away games, it's a little bit separately. It's not based off of like, it's based off of like loyalty points per se, but they do like a guest ticket with it. It's a completely different process.
I'm talking about like, what exactly?
That's listed in the minutes that I sent out about the meeting with Tim Burchett. A lot of these questions y'all have asked are in those minutes if you want to review those.
I mean, do you have a like specific question about away game
I was
ticketing?
just wondering, is it determined by other people, like other schools, or is it specifically?
I mean, they're like general admission tickets whenever we get away game tickets. They just like allocate to the university. Yeah.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that like as far as like the Alabama game and things like that, a lot of those tickets are already sold, so they wouldn't be able to increase our allotment because those tickets are already gone. And then also as far as penalties and stuff, I've talked to a few people and we might be looking into creating a bill about potential like penalties, potential like rewards for people that are on like the wait list and try to get tickets and aren't able to get it because they run out. So if anyone's interested, reach out to me.
Just throwing this out there, when it comes to penalties, you don't really know the situation behind it. So like somebody might not show up because like their grandma died, and I wouldn't want to lose a loyalty point because my grandma died.
So that can be future legislation if you guys are passionate about it. But anything else regarding tickets? Any other questions? All right.
Thanks, Carson.
That was the longest one. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and now I'd like to call President McKinsey Patterson.
All right, so a couple things from me. So we've got a couple of members, new people in the room in general. A group of them is our first year council members, so it looks like we've got about 4 of them. The first year council is awesome this year, and if y'all are as psyched about them as they are about you, obviously since they're here and they don't even have to be, then you might want to be a mentor to them as a senator. So I'm going to just go ahead and pass this around. I'm not a fancy person, and this isn't a fancy but it doesn't need to be. I just need to know if you're interested in mentoring one of these bright young individuals as a senator, because a lot of them are interested in you. So I'll start it right here with the Senate Chair herself, and if you're interested, just go ahead and sign it. We're also going to swear in a bunch of people who haven't been sworn in, including some at-large people that are new, and I'll introduce to you soon. But I've got a couple more announcements that I'm going to go through before that. So, like we said earlier, we've been hinting at, and hopefully you've got it on your calendar, Senate Development Day is next Tuesday. So it's kind of an off week between Senate meetings. And so what does Development Day mean? Well, you all are sitting in here every other Tuesday to learn how to represent your students better and to pass and vote on legislation and debate legislation and produce legislation that is ultimately for the student body. And so if you're pouring out, then you should be poured back into, and that's what Development Day is all about. And so we'll talk a lot about your development as a senator, what we could be doing better as far as legislation goes. And so it will look, if you've been to a Development Day before because you've been a senator before, it'll look similar in some aspects. We're also trying to take the feedback that we know from the Senate Development Days in the past and kind of like transform that so it's as productive as possible for you. We also kind of want to do some exercises where we kind of have some pre-planned topics as far as hot topics of legislation that go on. And myself and my senators that can sit down and come up with those topics, but I'd kind of like to know ahead of time what y'all are wanting to talk about. So if anybody kind of has some like hot topics that they're like, hey, like we should definitely talk about this in our groups, then feel free to take this opportunity now to tell me what they are, because I'll just write them down. Is that a hand, Thomas?
Oh, no, I'm confused.
That's like issues we'll talk about?
Can you give an example?
Wait, campus policy.
Yeah, so like what campus policy? Anything that you could write legislation about that's like a hot topic that you could work with other senators to realize how that could become a possibility. Okay? Grant? Okay, student ticketing. With student ticketing, I'm really hoping that y'all aren't super confused by what we just talked about. This is a process that will solve a lot of the issues that we've faced up until this point in the football season. It's a good thing, and hopefully when you receive that email, it'll make perfectly clear sense to you. There's a lot that goes into it, and hopefully that's stuff that y'all feel more comfortable in understanding than a lot of the other people in the student body. So if you don't, then continue to ask questions to Carson and myself. Elizabeth.
I would really appreciate if we took a little bit of time to possibly talk about accessibility issues.
Okay.
Because, I've written a couple of bills about it, and, but the reality is that for those of you that were at the Chancellor's Roundtable, there are still quite a few accessibility issues on this campus that, you know, it can't be all lumped in a single bill, and I would really like to know that while it can't be fixed overnight, I would like to know that can be a continued work in progress.
Good contribution, definitely. Other thoughts? Yes.
Non-traditional student resources and childcare.
Childcare?
Yep.
Other thoughts? All right, well, if you've got anything else that you want to make sure gets worked into our development day somehow, then just shoot me an email. And then so Meet Your Senator Week was last week. I want to hear your feedback on how that went, especially if you had some good conversations. I know that some of you did already. Also, when you're talking to your constituents, I did have an RA in one of the residence halls let us know that there was some of the dialogue between, so just remember, basically the gist of what I'm saying is just remember that when you talk to your constituents, a lot of them have no idea what it takes to write legislation that's feasible and that has the ability to get passed. And so sometimes they'll give you ideas and you know what's possible and what's not for like the most part, whereas they have no idea. And so they might tell you something and you're like, well, that's ridiculous, that could never happen. Don't say it quite like that. Make sure that you're letting them know that they're heard and that you're just so appreciative of the fact that they are wanting to talk to you as their senator and that you'll research more of that topic, whatever it is that they're asking you about. So just remember, we're never shooting down our constituents, and we're just happy for any interaction that we can have from them because ultimately that could lead us to some possible feasible legislation. But I do kind of want to hear some of y'all's anecdotal reviews about how Meet Your Senator Week was, and then kind of I want to know that it was productive for you, and if it wasn't, how it could be better next semester. So, how was it?
I think it went pretty well for us. We were in Haslam. Like I said, we went on like Thursday, so by then we didn't have any more push cards or buttons. So that was kind of a bummer, but that happens. So.
I'm glad you got rid of them. It's good. Other feedback?
There was some people in, I guess, on the engineering campus that number one didn't know what we do, and number two they're like, okay, so where do I vote for you? And I was like, we're like senators are already elected. It's like already done. We're just trying to talk to you, and it was kind of like a big deal that we're just trying to talk to people. So I don't know how we can make that more.
You do more of it. So that's a really good point. That's why you have 12 constituency hours, because we need to be more visual. We have to be more than just social media, as our communication instructor always says. It's important that you are the face that is familiar to them as their senator, because that's not surprising, right? So I think a big complaint that SGA has in general from the general public is that you never see us until we're asking you to vote for us in the spring semesters. Well, that's not what we want. We want them to see our faces first but then know exactly who you are because you're just that familiar of a face. So when we continue to do things outside of Meet Your Senator Week and we engage with our constituencies, hopefully that will become less and less. And so that's why hopefully y'all did get to have some good conversations. Other thoughts? Brent?
I managed to get in contact with over 115 people and having some wonderful conversations about their concerns and issues.
Good.
And I figured out that I use RAs to talk about the message of all the policies that we do to get the word out.
That's awesome. I loved your Twitter picture. Okay, one more and then we'll move on. Did anybody? I thought I saw a hand over there. Okay. Well, all right. So let's see here. I guess the other thing that I really wanted to make sure we do, I wanted to introduce you to some of our at-large senators. This is the first meeting that we've had people appointed to at-large who are here now. We'll swear them in as well as anybody who hasn't yet been sworn in. But I just wanted to introduce their faces to you because y'all have all gotten to meet each other at least a little bit. And nobody else has. So I'm not sure where everyone's sitting, but I see Ayanna first. So this is Ayanna Crenshaw. Hey. And then you've got Trevor Bass back there. Trevor's really great. So is Ayanna. And then so is Mega Patel. And then who else is here from, oh, there's Haley Brundage. And then Haley Page. I got the Haleys back there. And so these are 5 senators who are representing at large. So that means there's 5 more seats that you'll see soon here as we continue to work through some of the best and brightest to represent the underrepresented here on UT's campus. Yeah, and so we have to vote on those at-large senators next. It's kind of a formality, and so we'll go through that process next from our teachers.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve these at-large senators?
Motion.
No motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor, raise your pockets and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? These senators are approved.
So now that you're real-life senators, so if you are an at-large senator that's new tonight, if you have been a senator but you were appointed through the interview process, or if you were just not at the transitions meeting in the spring and you've never stood up and held up your right hand and said the oath, not if you're a proxy, but everybody else, now is your opportunity to do that, and it's kind of like a repeat after me thing. So stand up right now and raise your right hand. Okay, so this is a Senate oath. I state your name.
I, Tim Burchett,
Solemnly swear always to uphold
solemnly swear always to uphold
the ideals of the University of Tennessee
the ideals of the University of Tennessee
and its policies as listed in Hill Topics.
and its policies as listed in Hill Topics.
I will strive to uphold the Constitution of the Student Government Association
I will strive to uphold the Constitution of the Student Government Association
and the bylaws of the Student Senate.
and the bylaws of the Student Senate.
I will, to the best of my ability,
I will, to the best of my ability,
represent the concerns of my constituents
represent the concerns of my constituents
as an elected representative.
as an elected representative.
Okay, well, so we're done. I hope that oath reminded everybody how awesome it is and what a privilege it is to be a UT senator. And go Vols. That was
Okay, now I'd like to call up Student Services Director Caitlin McCandless. Okay. Then I would like to call up our Senate Parliamentarian Don Black.
Hey everyone, I have 2 parliamentary things and then 1 non-parliamentary thing. I'm gonna have to read for those 2, so first I'll do like the more fun thing. It was Abby's 2-year anniversary on October 1st, so we made her a card, and we just wanted to give it to her. You guys all had an opportunity to sign it, so we just wanted to do it and sign it.
Gosh! Thank you! Thank you, everyone! I can't imagine anybody I'd rather spend my anniversary with. So thank you so much. Yay! Thank you, I love it. It's perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, so now to the more serious thing. So I'm up here tonight, I'm going to just read it. I'll explain why in a second. I'm speaking tonight to address 2 errors that occurred during the last Senate session. I have written down my remarks in order to be more deliberate and precise in the language that I use to discuss these. The first error occurred during the consideration of Resolution 217. After Kalina made a motion to table the legislation and a roll call vote occurred, I mistakenly stated that such a motion required a 2/3 majority vote rather than a 1/2 majority. As the vote on the motion was 24 yeas to 21 noes, the legislation should have been tabled right then. I apologize for my mistake. Obviously, I want to extend to all of you appreciation for doing your job, even as I failed to do my own. Since the last session, I have taken appropriate measures to prevent a mistake like that in the future. I sent an email about this as well. In order to remedy that error, we're reconsidering that legislation today as if it was tabled at that moment in the last session, and therefore vote and debate on that legislation at the session occurring right now. The other error that I would like to discuss occurred during the last Senate as well, and involved a member of the judicial branch in that previously mentioned legislation, Resolution 217. After the end of open debate and final remarks, one justice spoke out and gave his opinion on the legislation. I would like to make clear that this is unacceptable, and the error occurred on multiple fronts. First, he spoke without being recognized by the chair. Second, the justice was not a member of the body or liaison and spoke without being yielded the floor or during open town hall. Third, the justice spoke after final remarks and immediately prior to voting in an attempt to change the outcome of the imminent vote. Finally, the justice spoke as a member of the judicial branch whose stated purpose is to remain neutral and impartial on cases similar to these. The remedy to this error has occurred on multiple fronts. First, we're reconsidering that legislation today. Senate exec has worked on how to address stuff like this in the future. I'm addressing you all right now. Both myself and the judicial branch have apologized to the legislation sponsors. And yeah, this, to be clear, unless you're a member of the Senate body or a liaison, you can't talk during Senate unless somebody yields you the floor or during public town hall. Just be clear, yeah, what happened last week was unacceptable and it won't happen again. I hope that's all made sense. If anyone has any questions, I can take them now. Yes.
Okay, so now we're going to move into old business. So we're going to move back into Resolution 0217. So I would like to call the bill writers up so we can move into discussion questions again. Okay, would anyone like to ask the bill writers a question?
For the proxies that are, oh, sorry.
I have a question as to whether or not you guys have spoken to people who work within sexual assault handling, and those who actually participate on the boards for these discussions whenever you create the bill. That's fine.
Yeah, so we did not speak in between the time from last time to now to anybody who deals with sexual assault. But in terms of being on the board, like, I mean, it's a little biased for me to say, like, we have because I'm on the board. But I spoke to several members that I could get in touch with about what was going on. They had no idea that this was even happening. So I did tell them that we, passed it and now here again with the resolution.
Okay. Are there any questions? Yes, Senator Peterson.
Motion and discussion questions.
I have a motion, discussion questions. Do I have a second? All in favor, raise your placard and say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, we will now move into open debate. Yes, Senator.
One thing is that I have talked with someone who is involved with student sexual assault and is a sexual assault survivor, and she deals and speaks to a lot of students that have gone through the university processes. And from her personal experience, she said that the majority of students who go through the university processes have had negative experiences with students on the board. And also, we can note the fact that this agreement was settled by the survivors of sexual assault because it was filed in the Title IX lawsuit, and which was filed from the 6 Jane Does. So we do know that this is something that is wanted from survivors of sexual assault, and that these specific survivors of sexual assault who went through the university processes did not want students on the board, and that is something that we can know because this was settled in the lawsuit filed by the Jane Does.
While that's true, I just want to mention that something that we don't know is to what extent the Jane Does in the lawsuit settlement were aware of the changes that are occurring with the proposed student code of conduct. So I don't know if I speak for all of the bill writers, but I'm against a board that's fully faculty and staff. I'm against a board necessarily that's fully students. I think it's important to have a mixture there. And we don't know if this was an attempt to make sure that there's not a fully student board, or if this was something in changing the new proposed student code of conduct.
So one of the things that I had heard about, one of the arguments that I heard for this bill is that we want to allow students to have a voice, and that's one of the most important things that we as a student senate can provide to students. So while I completely agree with that, one of the things that I find kind of troublesome about this is that if this change was not to be made, it would seem like we were detracting from victims of sexual assault who are students here from having a voice of whether or not they would want students on the board judging them in a trial setting. And I feel, and as we had talked about, so there are certain people who would feel uncomfortable and it can harm other testimonies if they had, if there are students on the board, if they feel uncomfortable with being judged by their peers. And I just think that's something we should probably consider before passing this bill.
To kind of echo what Dallas is saying, I think we have to ask ourselves, at this point, are we valuing more the fact to make a point that students' voices matter on the student conduct board? Or are we valuing, I think we need to ask ourselves what voice we're valuing. So if the opportunity for the survivor to make a decision about the experience that they're going to have, why are we going to completely shove that to the side just to make a point about making sure that student leaders' voices are heard or that people on the board are heard? And so I think we really need to think about this and think about who's being impacted the most. In the case of this, I think that it's the survivors whose voices we need to honor the most, more than those of the student leaders.
I think it's important for people to keep in mind that we are also not only thinking about the voices of the students on the Student Conduct Board and the complainant, but also the defendant. And this proposed change is more limiting to both parties in that it gives one party complete authority over the composition of the Student Conduct Board. And that's more limiting to the party who doesn't get a voice in that. Because if y'all remember, it says that if one party says they don't want students on the Student Conduct Board, then that's a done deal. And we're not saying that the system is perfect, and I know that one of the problems with the sexual assault victims is anonymity, however you say that word, being anonymous. And we think that there should be a change for that, but we don't think this is the way to do it. We think that this proposed change is going to be more harmful than it is helpful. So, keep that in mind.
I just want to add to that, that we aren't necessarily, if the alleged assailant, so the respondent, chooses to not have students on the board, and the complainant does want students on the board, then we're stripping that ability from them. So I don't think it's fair to necessarily say that we're just taking the voice away from the person who has allegedly been sexually assaulted. We're also taking, that's who we're potentially taking the voice from, the person who was sexually assaulted if they want students on the board. As we mentioned in the resolution, there is a fear that if somebody was sexually assaulted and they went through this process and the respondent were to request that there not be any students on the board and that person were found innocent, we don't want there to be any question in the person who was sexually assaulted's mind that this may have not been a fair trial. And I just want to reiterate, we aren't saying that the process right now is perfect. We're saying that this change specifically is something that could potentially make the entire process worse. And if we go through with this change, it's impossible to make another change that might actually improve the process in the future.
One concern that I have with that is that the system is already currently rigged against the sexual assault survivors because 1 in 5 women are currently sexually assaulted on college campuses, but many college campuses report a sexual assault incidence of 0%. And so I think that this is important to recognize is that our system is already rigged against the sexual assault survivor, and therefore we need to consider their voice as more important than someone who is the defendant.
Well, if the campuses in this situation are the ones who are skewing the results and are the ones who are making these misjudgments, wouldn't you want someone who is a student, who are student leaders, who are vocal about this on the board? And I don't mean vocal as in like taking away anonymity, if that's how you say that word. I mean vocal as in somebody who will actually maybe like make sure justice does happen, or make sure that student's voice, the complainant's voice, is heard, and make sure fairness actually does happen and justice is actually served.
Senator Beach. When it comes to the whole discussion about making covering the school in legal situations, I think that removing or allowing the option to remove 1 or 2 students from the board is not going to make an enormous difference because you still have all the other people who are accountable and hearing what's going on in the case. And so I just think that when it comes to sexual assault, you have to be really careful about the legislation that you make because it can be really uncomfortable, and I just think ultimately passing this resolution would put people in some really uncomfortable situations that could be avoided. And for the most part, I think that people won't use the option of taking students off the board. So you're not really going to decrease student voice if that's what you're worried about all the time. But in cases where it's really personal and a student doesn't want their really traumatizing event to be heard by another student they don't know, I think that you really should reserve the right of that student to get rid of the other student on board.
I agree with that, and I think that this bill is more set up for that situation than just taking away the students on the board to begin with.
For the parliamentary board, you're not allowed to ask questions to the bill legislatures in open debate if we came up with a question due to open debate, correct?
Yes. Yeah, something else I want to say is that initially, when I started kind of talking to people about this resolution, after we developed the resolution before we ever considered it last Senate session, I started talking to people both that were sponsors as well as people that had already told me that they're most likely against the resolution, about how one consensus I think we had is that the system right now is perfect, and something we did want to look into is coming up with a better process. And that's something that we were told by Dr. Curley we cannot do before this October meeting. There just wasn't enough time. But I just kind of want to, again, reiterate, if this change were to occur, then the possibility of making another change and making an improvement, whether it's making it so that both the respondent and complainant are anonymous to the Student Conduct Board, whether it's making it so that there has to be a consensus about whether or not it's a full student or full faculty staff conduct board, those types of changes won't be possible if this change goes through. So I'm in no way saying the system right now is perfect. I definitely think that improvements need to be made, but I think that this specific improvement makes it worse.
Motion to go to the next thing, to vote.
I have a
Previous question.
I have a motion, do I have a second? All in favor, raise your flag and say aye. All opposed? Okay, we will now move to final remarks. So, like,
Previous question stays fine.
okay, and we'll now move into voting. Okay, I guess we're doing a roll call vote. Dalton, whenever you're ready.
All right, when I call your name, just say aye or nay, and then you can also abstain if you'd like. Madison Starnes. What's the question?
Ayes in favor, nay is against, and you also have the ability to abstain.
I was just nay.
I'm voting nay. Logan Notstein.
Aye.
Mustafa Ali Smith.
Aye.
Sam England.
Abstain.
Kalina Blazanovich.
Nay.
Danielle Kawakowski. Will Gableman. Kendra Phillips.
Aye.
Thomas Tran.
Abstain.
President of the Senate body. There were 12 abstentions and 12 nays. That's 24 against. And then there were 24 ayes. So that means 24-4. And we had to have half plus one in order for the bill to pass.
Does an abstention automatically mean no?
So to pass a piece of legislation, you need half the members voting plus one. So if you abstain, you're not voting for the legislation, right? So there is, a view could be that it counts as a no vote. There's, I think, a distinction there, but functionally similar, perhaps?
So, since this was an even tie, I'm going to call the President of the Senate, McKinsey Patterson, to give her vote. Nay. The legislation does not pass. Okay, so moving further into old business, I would like to call up the bill writer of Bill 0117.
Good evening. I hope you're all doing well. I don't have a crowd of sponsors. It's just me right now. This is the bill in its original form. We will have an amendment form that I'll show off in just a second with somebody. It's that discussion questions. But I'll take a moment to talk to you about the main points of this bill, at the heart of it that stays the same, and that is about what our UT librarian, Rachel Caldwell, came and talked to us on our first meeting. And she came and talked to us about open educational resources. I won't go through the whole spiel that she went through, but basically they are free to access online educational resources that students can use, and I know the physics department is using them to some good effect. And we would love it if more classes used them. That way we could lower the cost of attending the university just by a little bit, because you aren't having to buy so many textbooks. So that's basically it. Some facts that, again, we discussed when Rachel Caldwell came by was quite a lot of students, 65, has chosen not to purchase textbooks. So hopefully if we are able to engender the use of equal opportunity textbooks, they won't have to make that choice. So overall, it's calling for a award system to be put in place for teachers that use this system. Texas A&M has a very similar system that their SGA put in place. So it's 3 awards for the 3 teachers that use open education resources the best. These are recognition awards, and then 1 award for teachers that make open education resources and add on to that library that people can pull from. So that's really the heart of the bill. Again, we'll get into the amended version and discussion questions, but that is the end of my opening statements.
Okay, so we will now move into discussion questions. Senator Kushner?
Yeah, I'd like to motion to amend the bill to read what the other side says.
Okay, just for reference, so I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. So is this friendly or unfriendly?
Friendly.
Okay. So we are now going to be looking at this. Any question?
Can you go over what the changes were?
Yeah, that'd be great. So a lot of minor wording has changed. I've been in contact with the UT librarian Rachel Caldwell over the past couple of weeks just to make sure that the bill is as strongly worded as we can. It actually accomplishes what it sets out to. So, for instance, just fixing some very obvious citation error that is now dealt with, and also pointing out, let's see here. Yeah, pointing out that these open education resources are used in conjunction with our open textbook network. So it works well with that, and UT is a member of that open textbook network. So those are the main changes.
Senator McCash?
What exactly would this award entail?
So I'm glad you asked. The award is mainly recognition. There is no kind of fiscal incentive. And basically it might be a gala, it might be like a plaque. That's what Texas A&M does, is it's a plaque. But those details are to be more finely tuned when we get this in the right hands, maybe the Academic Affairs Committee. But those details can be determined, but mainly it's a recognition. That's the idea. Hopefully we could get that out in a newsletter, maybe get it on the news. Those are kind of things that we're hoping for once this progresses.
Senator Hogan?
From Texas A&M, how much did it decrease the amount of textbooks needed for a class when that award was put in?
That statistic was not available on their website when they spoke of it. They just said that they did put it in place. This was put into place, I think it was either last year or the year before, so they probably don't have any significant statistics to actually present. But the hope is that we can change 6 books that people have to buy a semester to 5 or 4 is the hope, but I don't have any hard numbers to give you. I apologize for that.
Are there any other questions? I have a motion to open debate. Do I have a second? Second. All those? Okay, we'll now move into final remarks.
So, going back to the bill itself, that isn't up there, even though I looked, is that hopefully this award can bring about more instances like a fellow senator said earlier, and hopefully it can bring about the incentive for teachers to actually use it, because right now it's kind of a lack of awareness. So if there is a reason to use open education resources, the hope is that teachers Something that I forgot to mention in my opening statement was that if any of the teachers find these resources to be inadequate, they can always remix them, change them up, add in their own articles to suit their needs. So, because that is a concern that some teachers have said is that, you know, some of these aren't up to par, so they can change those to fit their class. So I really think it is a solution to this issue, and I hope that you all agree, and I urge passage of the bill. Thank you.
Parliamentary inquiry. In order to conserve time, can we just do like a voice vote instead of roll call?
Yeah, you have to motion for roll call, so it's automatically what's chair decides, it's a voice vote or a show of hands.
Okay, so all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Bill passes. Okay, so we will now move into new business.
Motion to introduce Bill 217.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. Okay, I'd like to call the bill riders up to the bus.
And gang, so this is fairly simple, I guess. It's a constitutional amendment, so it has to pass twice with 2/3 vote, so we'll be talking about it in 2 weeks. Basically, it just clarifies, so the president, the student body president, which this year's Carson, right, has the ability to veto bills and resolutions passed through the Senate. This just kind of clarifies that portion of the Constitution to, right now it says that you can veto the enactments of Student Senate, Graduate Student Senate, and First Year Council, and then they have to tell Senate that. So this kind of clarifies that if they veto something from Graduate Student Senate, they go tell Graduate Student Senate that. If they want to veto something First Year Council, they go tell First Year Council that. And then the other thing is it clarifies the timeliness of the veto. So before, it didn't say, it said a written message, I'm straight here too, a written message must be at the next, or it wasn't clear about it had to be at the next meeting after the bill was passed, basically. So this just kind of clarifies that the veto has to happen at the next Senate session instead of 2 months later or just not acted upon.
Next regularly scheduled Senate session.
Right. So we thought 2 weeks would be plenty of time for the president to consider whether or not to sign or not to sign something, as we get the bill 7 days in advance to consider it and vote on it that day. I just think it kind of is like a check and balance we should work on.
Yeah. And it prevents, not that, I mean, obviously we haven't had this issue this semester, but, or any time in the recent past, prevents a president from waiting, you know, it keeps everyone accountable to make sure that the Senate's going to have either confirmation of the bill being signed or notice that it was not, so that Senate then has the time to take appropriate action, whether that be you know, attempting to overturn the veto or rewriting the bill or addressing the problem in a different way.
Yeah. And just like Sam said earlier, this isn't like a subtweet at Carson
No,
or anything.
most
Like, this
certainly
hasn't been an issue. So it's just something that we've been thinking about changing, and now is a good time to do it.
We will now move into discussion questions. Does anyone have anything they would like to ask the bill writers? Senator Burchett.
I haven't looked at the Constitution recently, homework, but is in it, does it like specify what happens if the president doesn't veto? Is it sort of like an automatic passage, kind of like what happens with our president, or we're just kind of like, whatever, but I didn't want to sign it? Is that?
So it's kind of a gray area in that it gives the president, so like on the legislation, if you've noticed, like it has the vice president's signature, the chair, I believe as well, and then also the president, right? So the Constitution gives the president the provision of vetoing. It doesn't really talk about signing. If that makes sense. So it's kind of a gray area. We've never had issues where like somebody's just like, I don't want to veto it, I'm just going to deal with it. I don't know if you want to talk about
so
that.
it's pretty vague. The idea of a pocket veto really isn't there. For instance, if we were to pass a bill near the end of the semester and the president didn't take any action on it, my interpretation would be it would just carry over into the next term. So it's really vague, probably up to judicial's discretion on that. But there isn't really an idea that it will, you know, after say, like in the state of Tennessee, I believe it's after like 10 days, if Haslam doesn't sign, Governor Haslam doesn't sign it, something becomes law. It's not the same. So.
Are there any more questions?
Well, just to clarify,
So the way it says right now is like, it is just, I think it's just like a clerical error,
Yeah.
right? Where like, if he vetoes that, he tells Senate, whereas like we just kind of like changed it. That's the minor thing. I'd say the larger point was the timely aspect of veto rather than like that kind of grammatical change.
Yeah, once again, it's just to ensure that the body that originally created the legislation gets that notice.
Thank you. Senator Peterson?
Motion and discussion questions.
I have a motion for discussion questions. On a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we will now move into open debate. Senator Peterson?
I think that this bill is a wonderful idea. It solves an issue before it becomes an issue, and it holds our executive more accountable. Not that the department isn't accountable, but it fixes that gray area like previous senator mentions. So,
Senator Cash? I have a motion for discussion. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we now move to voting. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution passes. Okay, so I have a few announcements for you before we adjourn. So, like McKinsey said, Senate Development Day is next Tuesday, so please come prepared to discuss things with your constituency. So if you have anything that you want to brainstorm or talk about, go ahead and have an idea in your head, because we want to make this as productive as possible. And also, again, just echoing what she said, if you have any feedback or anything you would like to see, please let us know, because we want this to be the biggest and the best use of your time. So please let us know if there's something you'd like to see, if there's anything you'd like to change in the future. Just let us know. And then also, after this meeting, I'm going to send out an email with a form for the constituency hours that Joe talked about.
I was wondering if we can have an update on the clicker situation.
Okay, yes, thank you.
You might have a favorite.
Okay, so the clickers are ordered, and we should have them by next session.
They're shipped today.
So that's all the announcements I had. Senator England?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting is adjourned.